I have 2 toddler sons. They're just like any other toddler and are pretty self-absorbed. Currently, one adores cars and the other one loves the colour red. Toddler 1 won't play with anything but cars, and Toddler 2 will only play with red toys. My mom hosted a party the other night and one of my aunts came. She bought a bunch of gifts for all the kids. The older kids were respectful and accepted their gifts, but my sons glanced at the toys, noticed they weren't cars or red, and moved on to something else. After realising that, she looked upset. I thanked her for the toys and joked about how unpredictable toddlers are, but she rolled her eyes and said that was rude. I told her they were toddlers and she said, "So, my kids knew how to say thank you by age 3. I told her they can say please and thank you, but they're still learning." She made a noise and said, "Learning to be rude." I told her she was being a little sensitive and that they were babies. They don't even understand the concepts of being rude or ungrateful. She got annoyed and said, "Fine then, don't expect any more presents after today," and that she hates entitled parents like me who are blinded by their children and think they can do no wrong. I said whatever and told her she could keep the gifts she bought for today since my kids couldn't care less about them. She got all red in the face and said she now knew why the boys are so rude, but I just grabbed my kids and my husband and left. I was extremely angry, but now I'm just in disbelief. Who gets offended by a toddler? My mom says my aunt is very upset with me and is threatening to uninvite us from her Christmas dinner my aunt is hosting this year unless I apologise and promise to raise my kids better. My mom thinks we're being ridiculous and I should just say sorry, but I said no. Am I the idiot? I just can't wrap my head around why she's so angry. Edit, first, to be more specific, the boys are young toddlers. Second, I feel I made this clear, but I apologised and thanked my aunt before anything else. The boys had already run off to their dad and were preoccupied with him by the time I got to my aunt, so dragging them over and trying to get a thank you out of them felt like a waste of time for all of us. I'm not saying she isn't allowed to feel hurt, but she didn't have to say anything about my kids. You are the idiot. I don't think it's so much that she's offended by toddlers, but by you just allowing them to be rude in her home and doing absolutely nothing about it, and instead making up excuses. As a parent, you should be trying to correct that behaviour now so it doesn't persist as they grow up. How hard could it have been to say, X, say thank you to your auntie for the presents, or something along those lines? What do we say? Would also have worked. I could go on. You should apologise. I think everyone's behaviour left something to be desired, but your aunt was much, much worse, so I'll go not the idiot. She was 100% out of line for reacting so seriously to toddlers not having proper manners. Of course they don't. And making demands of you as a parent, i.e. the promise to raise your kids better, absolutely takes the cake. Extremely presumptuous and self-congratulatory. She should have kept her assessment of your sons or your parenting to herself, as it's frankly none of her business. My nephew at 3 just fundamentally didn't understand gifts. I gave him a bag to open. He got the soft toy out, looked at it for a moment with total ambivalence, then threw it behind him and started admiring the gift bag and saying, "Wowee!" We all just laughed because he's a toddler. He's 11 now, and I can assure OP he has excellent manners and always says thank you for gifts. To me, nothing is more impolite than an adult getting offended by the actions of anyone under 5 years old. Aunt got annoyed and said, "Fine then, don't expect any more presents after today," and that she hates entitled parents like me. She got so mad she basically said she hates you, and adds, "Unless I apologise and promise to raise my kids better," and then want you to debase yourself to soothe her wounded pride. Your kids are just starting to be verbal and your aunt is flipping like this over lack of verbal expressions. She needs to get over herself. You should probably get assessed for some kind of personality disorder because I can't understand why she would react so hostile to literal babies. Mini update. I sincerely believe there was no reason for her to get so angry, but I understand I was rude and will apologise. We won't be attending her Christmas party though. Thanks for all the comments. I appreciate the nice ones with constructive criticism. My twin cousin has been living with us for 9 months. She was also in foster care for 6 months before living with us. We have a 4-bedroomed house and there's me, teen female, my brother, older teen, my sister, nearly adult, and my parents, so there wasn't an extra room for her. We're converting our old playroom to a bedroom, but until then, she's sleeping in my room because we're closest in age. Sharing a room with my cousin is exhausting. She refuses to leave the room for anything after my mom tucks her in until my mom comes to get her. So she's hungry, scared, needs to go to the bathroom, feeling sick, etc., she always wakes me up. Then I have to get my mom so my mom can take care of it. She also randomly hides under her bed and cries, so I always have to drop what I'm doing to get my mom to take care of that too. The other night she woke me up because she wanted my mom. She could have gotten her herself, but she always insists on waking me up and asking me to get her. I got my mom because she could have cried all night if I didn't. Then the next morning I said it should be someone else's turn to share with her until her room was ready, and that I was sick of being woken up because she's scared to leave her room after bedtime. My dad said her room should be ready soon and they're not moving her to another room. I said it was BS that they were making me babysit their niece all night, and my dad threatened to ground me if I didn't shut up. Am I the idiot for saying someone else needs to share a room with her? Not the idiot. My dad said her room should be ready soon and they're not moving her to another room. How the heck is this taking any time at all? How to convert a playroom to a bedroom? Set up a bed. You're done. So what happens if OP tells CPS about how she's losing sleep and her parents have threatened her with retribution simply for asking for a break from the burden of overnight childcare so that she can get the rest necessary for her physical and mental health? The kid should be in with OP's parents. It sounds like your cousin has suffered severe trauma and needs a great deal of support. Is she in therapy? If not, she should be. It's unfair that your parents have put you in the position of being a support person for this child when you're not qualified to do so. They are ignoring the stress your cousin's situation is putting on you. Perhaps you can suggest they get a baby monitor or walkie-talkie for your cousin to contact your mom directly. She will need that when she's in her own room. You're certainly not an idiot, but I think your parents aren't trying to parentify you on purpose here instead of being stressed out by the situation and can't think of better solutions. Do anything you can to get the sleep you need. Earplugs, sleeping in your sister's room, or anything you might come up with. It sucks, but moving her multiple times will just compound her trauma, and her room is nearly done. Hang in there. Long story short, my 28 male grandparents used to live on this ranch for almost 60 years, and both passed on the property. My mother was raised there, and so were my siblings and me, so the house has a lot of sentimental value. There's also a lot of monetary value to the property. The problem is the upkeep, especially as a single 28-year-old with a moderate-paying job. This is what I told my grandfather years ago when he told me he wanted the house to be my inheritance, to raise my own family like he did his. It became a running thing with him telling me I needed to get comfortable with the house for when it's mine, me saying I'd just sell it and him arguing with me about that. He sadly passed early last year quite suddenly and, true to his word, left the house to me, among other assets. I decided I'd try to make the old man happy and accepted the responsibility. For the past year, I've been trying to make everything work with fluctuating success, but ultimately the house is a sinkhole. On top of that, I've been headhunted for a job across the country with the potential to move overseas within the next year. After long internal deliberations, I decided just to sell the house. When I told my sister, she lost her crap. She says I'm disrespecting the old man's wishes by selling it to a stranger and should rather let her and her husband have it. I told her she could have it immediately as long as she could pay the market value for the house. She thinks it's unfair to ask for money for a house I got for free and offered to stay in it, and in return, she'll upkeep it herself. I was planning on using the money from the sale for a place when I moved, though, so that also wouldn't work out. There's a lot of tension now, and she's even trying to rally family members against me. I get the old man wouldn't be happy with this if he were alive, but frankly and lovingly, he isn't, and I shouldn't burden myself, right? Am I the idiot? Edit, she got a monetary inheritance. I wouldn't say it was of the same value as the total I got. She's against giving any money to me since I got it for free, but most importantly, an extra monthly income wouldn't be as useful now since I'm moving as a lump sum would be. The old man was a bit complicated because he believed that sons continued families and daughters marry into them, so she got money and I got the ranch. Not the idiot. I'm not the biggest fan of venerating the wishes of the dead when it's counter to your well-being. It's nice that you tried, but your grandpa was under no illusions about your feelings about keeping the ranch in the family. Definitely check for hidden treasure, cursed gold or buried bodies before you sell. I told her she could have it immediately as long as she could pay the market value for the house. You are the idiot. You get a free house that Grandpa wanted to stay in the family and decide your sister should pay market value. I don't see how you could be anything other than the idiot. I'm not saying she should get it for free, But market value for a free house? If you do this, expect to forever impact how the rest of the family sees you for the rest of your life. Brother got the house instead of a monetary inheritance. Sister did get the monetary inheritance and therefore should pay for the house. Otherwise, the sister would get 2 free inheritances, and OP would get nothing. You told your grandfather you planned on selling it, and he left it to you anyway. It's his choice, and he made that choice knowing what would happen. You're not going against his wishes by selling it. You never promised not to sell it. I've been with my boyfriend, 33, for almost 11 years. I'm 28 female. We've been living together for about 9-ish years now, and I feel like we've reached a point in our relationship where it would be reasonable to get married. I feel like I've been ready for that step for at least 5 years now, and I've asked on more than one occasion if he's still interested in or willing to get married. In the past, when I've asked, I remember him just laughing it off and saying, "Yeah, I guess." His tone and expressions made it feel like he wasn't taking me seriously, but I don't know what he would say about his intentions with how he responded. I just know how it made me feel, not how he viewed it from his side. A few years ago now, I directly asked if he'd thought about engagement rings, and his response to that was, "Well, I could either have bought a new car or gotten you a ring. The truck he'd had since we'd met had finally died and he needed to buy a new vehicle." I asked, why would a ring cost the same amount as a car? That seemed ridiculous. That was the first time I'd ever looked at engagement rings and their prices, and, as it turned out, you could find an engagement ring that cost upwards of $15,000. I also found examples of rings I thought were pretty and sets with a wedding band that cost less than around $1,500, and showed him those as an idea instead. But I also didn't bug him about a ring again for at least a couple of years, because he was making vehicle payments, and I didn't have any expenses like that then. Time passed and I finished my university degree, which had been another reason he'd brought up before that getting married wasn't a priority while I was in school. He finished paying off his vehicle and I thought, maybe now that he isn't making vehicle payments, he might take that money that used to come out of his account and put it towards a ring instead. But it's been a few years now, and I think he put that money towards tattoos and a PS5 instead. Which is fine, it's his money to spend how he wishes. I just have to note that he prioritized those things over the next step in our relationship. And the last time I brought up getting married, he said, "Marriage is just a box people feel like they need to check off, just like having kids and buying a house." I replied, "I want to check the box. I want to get married and have a wedding, then have kids." I feel like I've made my position clear and it doesn't feel like he cares or places any value on something that's important to me. I don't want him to become a groomzilla and go wedding crazy, but I want him to think it's an important next step in our relationship, even if it's only important to him because it's important to me. I don't want to end an 11-year relationship because he didn't buy me something shiny, but I also don't know if I could compromise getting married and not end up resenting him for it down the road if I stayed and started a family with him without the marriage first. Would I be an idiot if I set a time limit for how long I would wait? Would I be a bigger idiot for telling him I have a time limit? Or if I didn't say anything and just let him play the year out like he always would have if I hadn't said anything about it? Am I the idiot for placing value in the symbol of an engagement ring and proposal in the first place, even if I don't expect the ring to have a high monetary value in itself? Hold on, are you two not on the same page with kids? That's a way bigger problem than a wedding. If he doesn't want kids and you do, this relationship is dead in the water, even with a wedding. He doesn't want to marry you or have a family with you. Find someone who does. The sunk cost fallacy applies to relationships too. This guy couldn't be clearer. He doesn't want to marry you. An ultimatum is just desperate. He's already told you that your goals are not aligned. Why are you still pursuing him? Have some self-respect. It sounds like OP wants marriage and kids, but dude wants a child-free roommate with benefits. They are not compatible and OP is wasting her childbearing years. I'm sorry, he doesn't care, and he will find another girl, hopefully over 18 this time, to warm his bed for a time. Babe, this has very little to do with purchasing a ring. You can get an engagement ring for $300. He's never proposing. It's been 11 years. You should love yourself enough to move on. Someone out there will want this with you, and you deserve that. Not the idiot, though. My 18-male mom was catfished. She had an emotional affair with and sent money to a scammer pretending to be a celebrity. The $8,000 she sent to him throughout being scammed was one thing, but what made Dad's decision to go through with divorce straightforward was the nauseating lovey-dovey messages between the two of them, including one where she told the scammer she was planning to leave us for him. Last night she came over and asked Dad for a second chance. She wants to be with us again. She said she was sorry and that it wasn't her fault. Dad was too stunned to say anything. He just stared at her incredulously when she said she wasn't in the wrong, then looked at me while struggling to find the words, so I jumped in. I reminded her that she promised the scammer that she would leave me and Dad for him and that it's her fault we don't want anything to do with her. She said I can't blame her since she was manipulated and it was like victim blaming. Not the idiot. She was swept up in an emotional affair with a celebrity, lost thousands of dollars that was no doubt half your dad's money, then was planning on leaving you both. Regardless of it ending up being a catfish situation, in the end she still did all these things. She made a bed, now she can sleep in it. Calling this victim blaming is an actual joke. Victim blaming is for stuff like getting mugged, wrong place, wrong time, etc. She had an emotional affair. Yes, she was a victim of theft and manipulation, but she either thought she was having a real emotional affair, or she sent the money and said that because why? No reason? Or, to put it another way, she's the one who said the words she said. Whatever led up to them. You can't unring a bell. I'm sorry I'm going to the bad place for laughing. I shouldn't laugh, but really, I'm curious about what she thought the celebrity needed $8,000 for. The number of middle-aged women from the middle of nowhere who are convinced that Johnny Depp is in love with them and needs their money is stunning. I don't feel bad for her. She said she was willing to leave her family. Well, she got her wish.